Good afternoon, students and faculty. Is this better? Okay. It seems my voice is a little strong. Well, can I get a good morning back? Otherwise, I think I can't see faces. Can I get a response, please? Good morning, students and faculty. Baba, eta to puro mane hobe na. Come on, shout. Good morning. Show that you're alive in this hall. Come on, good morning. Okay, that will do. Well, I'm sure all of you know we are here to celebrate our achievements of not just cisgendered heterosexual women, but to celebrate our diversity, our spirit, our indubitable, undoubtedly fierce spirit that we all portray to the world. Today we have academicians, people from the academic sector, from the industry, from the medical sector, from the background of theater, to tell you their stories, to give you a different outlook of how they have, in their own way, tried to change the world. The topic that was set forth by the United Nations this year was Digital, Gender Equality and Innovation. Well, in her 1949 Second Sex, Simone de Beauvoir had said, one is not born, but one becomes a woman. In the digital world, this sentence gets a separate domain itself. It's the digital that influences us. And any discussion today about gender cannot exclude the digital world and its influences. So that is what we will be doing today. Our theme is Digital Innovation that looks towards gender equality, and we will analyze how that affects us. Not just that, we all know that Women's Day happens to be one of the days when we take stock of our achievements, of our contributions, and analyze how far we've come. And also pay tribute to women who fought for this day to become success. Well, to all the men out here, 19th November happens to be International Men's Day as well. So no, we are not overlooking you. But today's session, let it be a learning, because as I said, we have eminent personalities from academics, from industry, from the medical fraternity, different sectors, to tell us their story. We will get straight into the event without further ado. I would request our Vice Chancellor, Professor Dr. Dhrubajyoti Chattopadhyay, to offer the inaugural address. Well, I would like to say this about him, that he is undoubtedly one of the most feminist men out there. Right? He is, yes, please clap for that, yes. We are extremely lucky to have him because he tolerates us, he upholds our views, and he is somebody who's always there beside us. So as I said, I repeat my words, he's one of the most feminist men I'm sure all of us have come across. As Shumuli ma'am was, cheering out loud, because I'm sure she had instances where he has stood beside us, firmly helped us. None other than to, of course, him to give us the inaugural address on the Women's Day occasion.
Very good morning to everybody. Our respected OSD to Chancellor, Mr. Pradot Bishwas, the honorable and distinguished personalities who are present over here. And definitely, I must congratulate our HR director, ma'am, Ina Bose ma'am, because of her, I think, a huge amount of what I could say. There are so many things out there. Let me first say that the excitements, as well as to convince everybody that this is a very, very important program. But we are convinced. She doesn't have to do that, but she wanted to convince us that it's a very, very important program. And normally in the last couple of years, she used to organize this. Now, my dear students, you know that today we have some very important personalities with us. And that is Amita Prasad from Indus Valley World School. We have Jaita Mitra, Mojumdar from Ruby Park Public School. We have Dr. Pushpa Mishra, a personality with whom I worked for a very, very long period of time, and I learned quite a bit. And I just want to thank, ma'am, that I used to get so much of learning from you in different sectors where we have jointly worked together. We have Devi Kaur. This name is very much known to all of you, but what I could say, the person who gives so much for the education part, and the whole modern high school actually became a hub of this education for the girl students. Along with, there are many other activities where she did quite a bit of activities related to the extracurricular activities for the students to make them very much related with the society itself. So, madam, your presence is really a surprise for us, because normally I heard that you were not accepting any more invitation, but thank you for accepting. And I have a very important personality with us also from the medical fraternity, Dr. Ashima Mukhopadhyay. And Dr. Ashima is actually right now a professor in Newcastle University, but also an adjunct professor in our sister Nivedita University. We actually requested her to join with us also. She said yes, she can arrange 6 months in UK and 6 months in Kolkata with our university, and will help us in building up a university hospital, which is going to be very, very important for any educational institutions. And Ashima is actually worked with very, very important personality in UK, and is the co-inventor of a very important anti-cancer drug, which has received a huge amount of received the international patent, and whatever the patent money as royalty she received, she has given that, donated that to form an organization in this part in Kolkata for actually making the awareness among the women in our city and in our state and then in our country, to make them aware about this cancer. So she is doing a great work. We also have with us another person. I just came to know yesterday that Donna. Now, regarding Donna, I must say that the important thing is that she is actually appointed as the member of IGCS Education Committee, to lead and mentoring and training the different program assistants who are going to work for the cancer, and specifically for developing the IGCS nursing curriculum. And so thank you also, Donna, for being with us today. And so other than this, we have the other faculty members in our university who played very important role, other staff members who played very important role in bringing these institutions, really an institution with an exponential growth. I must say that there are importance of them also. But as Oindrila already mentioned to you that I really dislike the term feminist, but anyway, she mentioned it. But what I can say that I normally look, there is no difference between anybody. It's all same. And if I want to make one particular gender, yes, we have to think about it. I feel a little bit of, it's sorry for me. I don't want to. I always want to establish that there is no difference between genders. At this particular 2023, we cannot say that, oh, this is gender, these are sex-specific things are there. It's everything is right now, and that's only been possible for the people for which we are going to actually celebrate the 8th of March. That is because it's long time back, as she mentioned, in 1900, when the day was initially celebrated on 28th February 1909, when 15,000 women marched through New York City demanding shorter hours, better pay, and voting rights. Now, what are these three demands? Shorter hours, better pay, voting rights. Voting rights, it's okay, right now everybody has got it. What about the other two? Don't you think that's true also for the men? The men are also working, that there are so many instances where they have to face these things. Now, but you know that in 1910, the Second International Conference of Working Women was held in Denmark's Copenhagen, where Clara Zetkin, who led the women's office for the Social Democratic Party in Germany, tabled the idea of an International Women's Day, and on March 9, 1911, the International Women's Day was honored for the first time in Austria, in Denmark, in Germany, and in Switzerland. So after that, United Nations started celebrating this day from 1977, and in general, what we should say that it's going to highlight the gender inequality and discrimination which are rampant in our societies. Whether we celebrate this day or not, we cannot actually say that this is not happening. There are so much of things happening. Even we are celebrating it from 1977 as after the announcement in 1977 by UN throughout the world. It's throughout the world it's happening. It's not in any specific that in the underdeveloped countries or these countries, it's throughout the world. There are so many instances of this type of discriminations are there. But what is important for this year, which I felt very important, the importance for this year, as Oindrila very aptly mentioned, that the United Nations actually announced it as Digit All. Now, innovation and technology for gender equality, to fight with inequality. It's very important, because during the COVID period, we learned a lot. And we actually found that this is actually, this particular important theme is so evident nowadays. And if we look at the personalities or the percentage or the statistical data of the women utilizing the internet or utilize digital data and others, we could see there are a huge gap between the men and the women. And one of the reasons for that is what actually being part is this particular education and the opportunities which are actually available to them are not so much. Now, bringing the women into the technology results in more creative solutions and has greater potential for innovation that meet women's need. And that will definitely promote the gender equality. Now the theme digital innovation and technology for gender equality recognizes and celebrates the women and the girls who are championing the advancement of transformative technology. And we have them. We have them with us who are actually involved in transformative technology. Now, observance of this day will explore the impact of the digital gender gap on widening economic and social inequalities, and it also spotlights the importance of protecting the rights of women and girls in digit spaces and addressing online and ICT facilitated gender-based violence. Now, to end, I again want to mention it's a question of the numbers, which may be different for the two genders, but it's true for everybody. It's true for all genders where we need this digital, that is this particular type of innovation in technology for different aspects. Thank you very much. Namaskar.
Hearing sir's deliberation today, I'm reminded of another great playwright, Ibsen, creator of Nora, of course, and he'd said that when he was asked that this is a feminist play, of course it came out in 1870s, and he had said, I don't understand the cause of women. It was a very controversial remark. I don't understand the cause of women. I don't understand who's a feminist. What I understand is I am a humanist. And Sir's deliberation today reminded us of that. Of course, he is one of the greatest humanists that we know, we've come across. But he also pushes us to become good, better human beings. And thank you for that, sir. I would request our dignitaries to please come up on the stage for the watering of the plant that we have in front of us. I would request Mrs. Kaur, Mrs. Professor Mishro, Mrs. Prasad, of course our Vice Chancellor, OSD to the Chancellor, our HR Director, our Joint Director Industry Connect and Director for Global Affairs, and of course our Controller of Examination, Professor Mitro, and did I leave out anybody? Yes, Dr. Mukherjee and Madam Majumdar, of course. I would also request the Director of Administration, Taposh Sharpati, to please come up, and this is a photo-op moment indeed. We won't want to miss that. This is our way of, reducing the carbon footprint. This is what we've replaced in place of lighting the lamp. This is a ceremonial process, of course, but we've replaced it, the lighting of the lamp with watering of the pots. A pro-green gesture from our part. Can that be accompanied with a round of applause, please? It's too quiet out here. Oh my God. Thank you. Yeah.
Voice is, by definition, a strong woman, as stated by Melinda Gates. And the search to find
as this is, of course, Sister Nivedita University, named after one of the prolific women of India's history. And Sister Nivedita, we are really proud to say at Sister Nivedita University we have a large number of women, faculty, staff, students. Oh, the ratio is 54:46. So we've tipped that scale. So big round of applause for that. Yes, it's an achievement, of course. Where we talk of, gender biasness, here we've done something. We're extremely proud of it as a team. And our students are also well aware of the contributions that our faculty members constantly giving them, and there's a video, our students have made it from the mass comm department that that'll give you a glimpse of what we are.
A woman with a voice is, by definition, a strong woman, as stated by Melinda Gates. And the search to final that voice can be remarkably difficult. And we at Sister Nivedita University understand this and stand here to lend a helping hand to our students as they do so. Building caregivers with care, walking them through the tenets of justice, showing them the key to communication, giving them a glimpse into the world of literature, seeing them reaching new heights in the technological realm. We have guided them using the best minds from a multitude of industries. Here, the students take the lead. They have followed in the footsteps of our professors, all frontrunners in their own fields. They have eagerly taken part in multivariate seminars. They have interacted with professionals from various walks of life. And through all this, we have kept our pledge to assist them. We also believe in taking a holistic approach to the developmental journey of a young mind, as they dance and sing to the musical beats and make characters that seem alive. We have strived to add zing to sometimes bland college days and game shows, fashion shows, and inter-college competitions. And through all this, we have endeavored to initiate discussions without ever letting gender variations play a role. This strongly reflects our university vow to be an ally as we stand at a crucial juncture, altering perspectives built around pertinent topics, the perception of women being one of them. Everyone has a story to tell. Women have too. It's about time we listen to their stories and celebrate them. Not just one particular day, every single day. Here's to women and the story of conquering every day. Happy Women's Day, not only for this day, but for every day.
That was made by, of course, our students of the Mass Communication Department. And thank you, students, for making that, for giving that tribute. I would now request the OSD to Chancellor, Mr. Pradut Kumar Vishwas, to offer his address. Of course, he is also somebody who's, constantly is supporting us and upholding our views. And of course, as I must say, he's also one of the most feminist men around. A big round of applause for sir, please.
Honorable Vice Chancellor, respected dignitaries, my dear colleagues, and my dear students. I am not a feminist, but I believe in establishing right and authorities of women. Sometime immediately after independence, we have started observing in Women's Day. After a long time, in 1975, the year was declared as International Women Year. Unfortunately, after 18 years of that declaration, Indian Union government and state government both also, they have come forward to establish the right of women in the form of representation in the local government. In 1992, major amendment was made empowering women in the government or local government. 1992 perhaps, this Constitution Amendment Act was made. So we have established the right of women in the representation in government. But what happened actually? What about the political schools? Can you show me the representation of 50%, at least 30% or 33% in the political schools? in AICC or CPIM Politburo or any other recognized political party. Can you show? No. So you are not, we are giving responsibilities, talented women are coming up, but we forget to give the rights and authorities to the women. You see the clubs and social organizations, how many women are there in the governing body? In the Senate and syndicate, how many women are there in the governing body? So, mindset is to be changed, I think. We have to empower the women first. We have to give right and authorities to the women first. Talented women are coming up, always, in all ages. But what about the general women? As 50% representation of the population is from women, so why not 50% reservation will be made? Thank you very much. We expect that we will all try to ensure the authorities and right of the women in the society. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for your inputs. Of course, now we've come to that part what we've all been waiting for, the keynote address by Mrs. Kaur. She is someone, students, you would love to know that by her admission, she's a dinosaur in the field of academics. So many years she's spent here, contributed to this field that it's practically uncountable. Several years, and she has shaped the academics of not just Modern High, but the state as well, where we all know the school that brings out best of students. Some of our students here, of course, are students of the Modern High, former students of Modern High. We're extremely lucky to have her with us today to give the keynote address. I would request the Vice Chancellor to please felicitate ma'am for us. Ma'am, if you could come up on the stage. It's a little token of appreciation. A big round of applause, please. We're extremely lucky that she's taken out time from her very busy schedule to be with us, to share her story with us today. We couldn't have been more grateful. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. As I said, a token of appreciation from our side.
I told you, they know I'm a dinosaur, so they were wondering whether I could stand and speak. Good morning and namaskar. It's wonderful to be here on this special occasion, International Women's Day. And I just wonder why Professor Chattopadhyay, Vice Chancellor Chattopadhyay, chose of all people a school educator to give the keynote address at a university. But it just shows that he's not a conventional person. I think he knows the importance of building bridges between high school and higher studies. This is the first person actually who I think gives this importance to high school people. And it's so important because they are the ones who will be going on to university. So thank you. And I also thank Ina Bose for attending to details. But I think there's something else which is a little strange. How come you thought of the oldest living generation to talk about the youngest living generation? And I was wondering why. Perhaps it is because of my association with them still. Because they are the first real digital natives, because they are born completely into the 21st century. I understand that after this will come generation beta, but I'll be dead and gone by then. The topic for today is digital challenges faced by Gen Alpha. Now, honestly, I didn't have gender parity in mind at all. And I was thinking, why? It's probably because I've always taught girls all my life, and it never occurs to me that women will not shine in every sphere. And that is a way, you know, in an all-girls school, this is what girls do. They can do everything. And I agree with the Vice-Chancellor when he says that, look, I don't look upon women as women and men as men. They're human beings. And I also like it that way. And every year there's a controversy about this particular day. Why should we celebrate Women's Day? It should be celebrated every day. Why today? Why a special day? But you know, to tell you the truth, I quite like it. I like being made a fuss of as a woman. And to think of it, in West Bengal, we have Bhai Phota. Do we have Bon Phota? And we have Jamai Shoshti. Where have you heard Boma Shoshti? So women, I think, in a way, they haven't earned their space. And always you will notice when men speak, they will say, we have to give authority to women, right? And I think the time should come when women say that we'll be distributing authority like the men. I saw this message going around on Women's Day. Thank you for this freedom, that freedom, and thank you, men, for allowing us. So I said, my goodness, what on earth is this about now? Now, I think you are ready to hear about artificial intelligence and about the digital world and so on. But you are in for some surprises. You know, when I asked some of this, 2010 to 2025 are the years where Gen Alpha are born or will be born. When I asked the 12-year-olds, they are the oldest, what are your greatest challenges? Do you know what they say? Our parents. And that didn't come into your mental focus at all. The other day, we were interviewing class 10 students coming into class 11, and I asked her, same thing. Ma'am, my parents. I said, what about them? Do you know I have 7 tutors, and I didn't ask for them? And do you know what has happened? I don't care. I don't listen in class. Somebody else will do it for me, and so on. But they don't listen. They feel that if they don't keep these tutors, I won't study. But we don't think about independent learners. Now, I wish to remind you of my limited experience in terms of my reach. It's limited to urban children only. That's unfortunate, but it's there. And it's only last year that we started admitting boys into an international school. So when we use the term digital, I don't know how many of our rural and district children will be part of the all. So when the pandemic struck, we know that children, poor children, even from the cities, they were deprived of learning because of inadequate connectivity, inadequate equipment. So they couldn't attend online classes. Yet, technology can be a great leveler. I'm sure all of you have heard about the Sugato Mitra's experiment of the hole in the wall. Anyway, in my speech, I will stick to the world that I'm familiar with, urban school children. In just one sentence, I will tell you what AlphaGen is all about. You will immediately grasp the characteristics. It has been said that they take half an hour to wear their shoes and socks, but they can open and close apps and video chat with many, many people, including strangers, in 17 seconds flat. And we have been facing these things when they started coming to school after the pandemic. They can't do simple things, and yet when they face technology in such an easy manner. And of course, they teach their teachers. The children, teachers say, their attention spans are affected. But you know, they are organically joined to their devices. They're constantly in front of the screen with their devices, constantly, and yet we say their attention span is limited. But you know what we talk about? It's about studying, the reading material that they need to study. It's then, or listening in class. They can't deal with black and white textbooks, and even ordinary illustrations are not enough. There has to be animation. One big, big challenge that Gen Alpha faces is the misunderstanding of adults. And by the way, I wonder if you know that even adults are hooked to their devices. Why do we blame children? So it's social skills, emotional maturity that we have to attend to. I feel that the technological part will be taken care of because they can adapt very easily. Children are most comfortable when they're engaging with their devices, not so comfortable with other human beings. So their well-being, physical fitness, and mental health issues, these are already posing problems. Their finger dexterity and certain dimensions of cerebral skills are, of course, quite amazing. So they will need to navigate between human and robotic teachers while choosing and using technology wisely. You know, I was not very impressed when this thing was going around. I don't know whether you've seen it, about this robot teacher in the classroom and teacher teaching. Because you see, in the form of Siri and Alexa and so on, it was already there. So just to have that human form, because they'll give the answers just like the other things. It's just getting more and more advanced. Human beings will never, never be replaced, I know. So that education the job scenario will change drastically. We all know that. In fact, I wonder what kind of career guidance we should give children, because we can't predict anything. The education curriculum will undergo quick changes, and I can't help stating that the so-called new education policy will not remain new or relevant for long. However, it is expected that Gen Alpha will be able to adapt to all the changing circumstances because they're quite adept at handling complexity. I know that many educators are worried about the emergence of ChatGPT. That's made such a huge buzz. All this cheating, they're writing essays and so on. But you know, I quite like this person's statement, Matthew Glanville, the head of the IB assessment. He said we should embrace all these changes and find ways in how to assess their learning, actual learning. They should use it sensibly and responsibly. I know that in my school, there were so many raised eyebrows when we allowed senior students to use mobile phones, bring mobile phones into school. Because I said that banning and taking them away, it's not the answer. You have to teach them to be responsible. Use them when it's required, not use them. That's education. Why ban? Now there is this, it's not technology, but this huge challenge that will have to be faced by Gen A, and that is climate change. Because we have to think of these other things also, not only technology. And the onus will be on them to deal with it on a war footing if they wish to save their planet. Now, I wish to end with a disclaimer. That is, we can't be certain about anything anymore. This is the great lesson we've learned from the recent pandemic. Thank you for listening so patiently.
That was heartfelt, truly. Only truly school teachers are teachers, who form the basis of our values, who teach us what it is to be good human beings, can only address us like that in a manner in which, the way she was delivering, she was as if teaching in a class, and we are so grateful to it. Thank you so much. We've got to learn so much. Of course, it is an opportunity to hear her, and students, that it is a rare moment that you've got to hear her speak today at SNU. As ma'am was mentioning, DigitAll. We can't overlook the digital exclusions that happened during the pandemic. We can't exclude the constant outrage of a digital influx that happened in our lives during the pandemic. But the specially susceptible people, we think, are the Gen Alpha, because they are born into it. We have grown up to accept the digital world, but they are born into it. That is where the challenges come across. We're extremely lucky today that we have in the panel, which is, as I said, a very important panel that will discuss on these topics, people from the academic sector, from school and from the university. I would request the panelists to please come up on stage along with our moderator for the first session, Madam Amita Prasad, Professor Mishra, Madam Mojumdar, and of course our moderator, Professor Debashri Mukherjee. I would request the Vice Chancellor to please felicitate our panelists, and I would request Pradut Kumar Bishesh, OSD Chancellor, to accompany the Vice Chancellor, please. Professor Pushpa Mishra is, of course, a renowned psychologist and an academician. We're extremely lucky to have us with you, madam, today. Madam Amita Prasad, of course, she's the director of Indus Valley World School. And Madam Joyita Mojumdar, she's the principal of Ruby Park Public School. Students, all of them have been in the education fraternity close to 3 decades, and their contribution is something that shaped the education of the state. We are extremely lucky that we have a renowned set of panelists addressing us, talking to us about their perspective and giving us new directions. The session will be moderated by Professor Dr. Debashri Mukherjee. She is the head of the department of our School of Law.
Thank you, Indrila. A very good afternoon to the dignitaries on the dais, as well as to the dignitaries of the dais. The first panel discussion of which we are a part is basically going to discuss about the theme of this year's International Women's Day, Digital Innovation and Technology for Gender Equality. This theme is basically aligned with the priority theme for the 67th session of the Commission on the Status of Women, which will be discussing on innovation and technological change and education in the digital age for achieving gender equality. This year's theme basically tries to champion the efforts that have been put forward by women and girls who have taken a key role in the advancement of transformative technology and digital education. And it is in the light of this theme today that we are privileged to have with us three great experts in their own fields. I am privileged to introduce once again before all of you the distinguished panelists, which include Madam Joyita Mojumdar, Principal, Ruby Park School, Madam Amita Prasad, Director, Indus Valley World School, and Dr. Pushpa Mishra, an eminent psychologist. Without waiting any further, I would like to place the first question to Madam Majumdar. If you could kindly answer what, according to you, digital would mean in terms of school education.
Thank you so much for the question. A very good afternoon to all present here and all to the revered dignitaries. I'm very, very happy to be amongst such eminent speakers and very, very noble people from the walks of education. To answer the question directly, I think the concept of digital has to percolate right from the nursery student to the university level student. And that is how we are going to achieve what we are aiming to achieve. We will first have to ensure that the technology and the correct usage of that has to be ensured at all the levels. Every child, along with teaching and the learning of technology, also has to be taught the ethos and the ethics of technology. They will have to be taught how to use technology in the right manner. But before that, there is a very, very important segment which again needs to be very literate on this subject, and that is the educators or the facilitators. You see, the current teachers in the schools, I will speak mostly of schools because I have been associated with schools for the last 27 years. So I will largely base my discussion on schools. So the facilitators of today working in the schools who have perhaps worked for the last 10 to 15 years were those students who have never seen technology or have barely learned computers or have perhaps some of them have never seen a desktop in their student days. So to translate what digital is trying to implement in terms of education is a huge monumental task. So it is very important for each facilitator to know in the right manner to impart the lessons and for the children to grasp it in the most amicable manner so that learning is progressive as well as it is very much technology oriented. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam. Taking the cue from here, my next question would be to Madam Prasad. Considering the gap in coming to school during the days of the pandemic, what essentially did you find were the challenges when the children returned back to school after the pandemic?
Good afternoon and thank Good afternoon, and before I begin responding to your question, I would like to thank Ms. Ina Bose for inviting me on this very special occasion. It is indeed an honor for me to be here, and also, especially I would like to express my feelings on sharing the same space as such eminent personalities as Mrs. Kaur, whom we all look up to immensely and from whom we all continue to learn every single day. I also am an admirer of Professor Chattopadhyay for reasons that Mrs. Kaur has mentioned some time ago. Coming to your question, uh, before I respond to your question directly, a few observations about the topic itself, and that is the challenges for Gen Alpha. I would like to add a few points to what Mrs. Kaur has mentioned in her very, very significant opening address. Gen Alpha, as we just heard, is dated from 2010. It is interesting to note that the birth year of Gen Alpha coincides with certain technological innovations. It coincides with the launch of the first iPad by Apple, by the video doorbells, by facial recognition, by streaming devices, and 3D printing. I also found it very interesting that 2010 also happens to be the year when an iconic film was made. This film was The Social Network. And for those of us who had the opportunity to watch that film, it was a film on the life of Mark Zuckerberg with a few artistic liberties, but a film which in many ways defines the challenges of this generation. Because whereas the protagonist of the film had hundreds of friends, in reality he was a very, very lonely man. I have been a student of history, and as a student of history, my training teaches me to identify generations according to the historical period to which they belong. For instance, we speak about the people who lived, say, in the age of the Mauryas, or we talk about people who lived in the age of the Mughals. And in more modern times, we talk about people who lived in the age of the Industrial Revolution. Each of these periods stretched over a long period of time, sometimes over several centuries. It is because change was slow, very gradual, sometimes even imperceptible. And now, change happens with such rapidity that a generation comes and goes in just 15 years. A few years after I was born, people were said to belong to Gen X. In a span of just 15 years came Gen Y, also called the millennials. They were succeeded by Gen Z, or as the Americans would call it, Gen Z. And then they ran out of Roman letters, so they decided to go Greek. And so now we have Gen Alpha. And that's the generation whose challenges we are talking about. This generation, because of its digital connect, because of the fact that artificial intelligence is an intrinsic part of their lives, they are so intertwined with all this that it's hard to separate them. And this is the point which brings us to the challenges that ma'am has referred to when the students came back to the real world of brick and mortar schools. And the kind of challenges that we as educators faced was to try and bring them back to the world of the classroom, where it was very, very difficult to hold their attention, where it was difficult to make them understand that whereas by the flick of a switch, they could switch off the teacher in the virtual classroom, they couldn't swipe away the real teacher much as they would have liked to. Whether the classroom was interesting or boring, they had to listen. Even when there was no screen that they could quietly switch over to. When the teacher was teaching online, they could pretend to have connectivity issues and they could just log out of the meeting. They couldn't take recourse to those situations in the real classroom. So these have been some of the major problems that Gen Alpha has faced. Also, what continues to plague their lives is the burden of expectation. As Mrs. Kaur has already mentioned in her keynote address, children face the enormous challenge of the pressure to perform. Every child has to be not just good, but the child has to excel at just about everything that he or she does, from studies to sports, from music to Mandarin. Nothing can be done for pleasure. Everything has to be done for trophies and awards. And we have all come across tiger moms and helicopter fathers who make sure that the children from a very, very young age know that nothing short of excellence will satisfy anyone. There is no time for them to just play. There is no time for them to sit and do nothing, supposedly nothing, because outdoor play is considered to be a waste of time. As a result, Gen Alpha continues to face the challenge of finding time out to continue to live that virtual life that they led before they came back to school. I think more later, but I would like to conclude at this point of time that we face a very, very serious issue of making Gen Alpha prepared to deal with the dangers of the virtual world. We need to equip them to deal with inappropriate content which is not suitable for their age, and all of which they have had unlimited access to during the 2 years of the pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you, madam. You are absolutely correct. The challenge to prove oneself for the Gen Alpha is getting stronger day by day, and meeting this challenge by the students is definitely an issue which has to be taken with extreme importance. My next question is to Dr. Mishra. I will just quote a statistics first before I put on the question to you. The 2022 Gender Snapshot Report of the UN says that out of a study conducted in 51 countries, 38% of women have personally experienced online violence. So whether it is the using of the content or whether it is getting used to various gadgets that are available online, what do you think are the psychological issues that women face when they come into contact with different kinds of digital gadgets?
First of all, thank you very much for inviting me to this August gathering and giving me this opportunity to interact with such eminent personalities. The question that you have raised about online violence, this is also one of the very important part of digital learning. Women actually have to learn, not only women, but I think everyone has to learn how actually to thwart and to deal with cyberbullying. And online violence actually is nothing but probably a cyber expression of offline violence. It is nothing new. It actually has increased some of the possibilities of violence, cyber activities, because your identity is fake. Many men actually work or they have fake identity and they make friends with women with those fake identities. And in online violence, there is always this option that you can go offline as soon as there is any kind of quarrel or fighting or things that are unpleasantly directed towards you. So you can immediately cut off the connection and nothing can be done. That is one of the most important things about online violence, because if you go to the police and if you give the name of the person, then there is no such person, because the identity is fake identity. And that is why online violence is very difficult to control. Actually, I had written here that one of the tasks of Gen Z or millennials, the parents of Alpha, Gen Alpha, will be to teach their children how to deal with online violence, how to deal with cyberbullying. So one has to, and that also actually worries me. It bothers me very much, because for very young children and for very young girls, you actually teach them not to trust people, and what kind of impact it will have for their future, for the future generation, and for their own mental peace. That is something to be really, really worked on, researched on. So this online violence is one of the major problems. But as I told you, that this is happening because it is giving men folk much more facility to be violent and to do verbal violence, abuse, and any other kind of violence they can take recourse to. So that is what my answer to your question will be.
Thank you, ma'am. The next question would be to Madam Prasad. As a school, innovation and technology towards gender equality, whenever we are talking about it, digital. Okay, Madam Mazumdar, I'm sorry. As a school, how do you think these challenges at the school level can be met with?
The challenges for technology were actually thrust upon us suddenly in the month of March in 2020. I have some very young listeners, I think, in the crowd, and I will share some very interesting experiences. I think it was 20th of March when suddenly our Honorable Prime Minister announced at a national telecast that the country is going to go for a lockdown the next day. None of the school teachers, I will only speak about those school teachers with which I am associated, but I can vouch for it sitting here that pan-India, none of the school teachers were equipped, trained, or were ready for this kind of a challenge. Challenge was huge. It was actually very, very difficult to overcome the challenge. There were many challenges. It will take me very long if I start citing the many, many challenges that the parents, the teachers, and the students met with. It is always a triangular function when we are working in the education sector. And for the school children, the parents cannot be omitted. Now, what had happened is, I'll tell you something very interesting. For the primary section, we have some very young teachers, most of them being lady teachers. And they started taking the classes online. The digital platform was working. We all downloaded the apps on our phones. We had the tabs, we had the laptops. Whatever was to be readied was done overnight. But then there is something we did not realize, that each and every teacher of any institution has entered the living room and the bedroom of all these students. None of us had any pre-laid down rules as to how the online classes would be conducted. 1 week into the entire thing, and we were realizing that all that was happening was perhaps correct academically, but ethically something was going very, very wrong. Classes going on for online, the students sitting in front of the laptop or the desktop or whichever form of computer it was, and in the background either the dogs were barking, the mother was cutting fruits, or the father was half lying on the couch watching the television. All said and done, very normal domestic activities, but it was not the way the online classes were to be conducted. So what we did at Ruby Park Public School, we created a list of do's and don'ts, that the room has to be isolated, nobody else can be there, it has to be kind of soundproof, and that the children, if they need assistance, can take the help of any one parent who has to be in full attention to the digital aspect only of the teaching and not interfere with the academic aspect. Leave that alone to the teacher. This being one very important, which has not very often been quoted. Other challenges I know you're all aware of. The next challenge was that digitally operating devices back at home. The mothers don't know it. The fathers are busy with their laptops working for their offices in their own respective streams or whatever occupation they are in. So everybody in the house is occupied. Nobody realized that overnight we are going to need 4 to 5 devices. 2 for the children, 1 for the mother, 1 for the mother if she is working, and 1 for the father, who obviously might be working. So it was all in a fix. Not everybody has the means to buy those many devices overnight. So what we realized is there is a policy in most of the households of a shared device. Now here I will touch very lightly about the empowerment of girls, for which a lot of things have been said, in the last few minutes. Now it is the decision of the parents to take up who in the family is going to use which device and prioritize it accordingly. Sometimes, and I again repeat, sometimes we noticed that there was a slight partiality towards the male child. Anybody who is a male child, anybody who is in the board levels 9, 10 needs to have more number of classes. Perhaps the girl child could manage with a phone, which is not adequate for attending classes. Next, in many of the families, the fathers are perhaps away or not living with them. It is the mother and the 2 children or 1 child living in the domestic scenario. Neither the mother can operate the device, nor does the child know how to operate the device. Lessons are being continued. We are going on with the lessons. We are uploading worksheets. We are uploading study material. Screen sharing is being done by the students. But at the bottom of it, we don't know, or rather they did not know how to switch on the device. There are many features in the device which I'm sure you all know very well about, and those features have to be touched upon for the child or the student to have complete access to the lessons which are being taught. I'm talking about absolutely the rudimentary level, and this is the second challenge we faced. Number 3 challenge, attendance, falling short hugely. As I think ma'am just spoke, that they have the liberty to switch off, snap off the devices, rudely so in the face of the facilitator. Imagine if you are taking a class and you are putting your wholehearted attention, your entire energy into preparing for online classes, and mind you, online classes needed a good bit of a preparation because they were not being heard only by the students, they were also being heard by the parents. And there was in their subconscious mind that I have to be very, very correct. I cannot take, as a human being, the liberties I take inside a physical classroom. But very rudely they were being switched off. Repeated phone calls, WhatsApp calls, please come for the classes. Somehow we were not being able to access. Attendance was falling largely. Last but not the least, comprehensible, the level of comprehension through the online classes for the first 2 weeks was relatively low. At least with respect to school children was relatively low. For them to understand a teacher teaching them through the screen suddenly with no rehearsal before whatsoever, and for them to understand, for them to take notes, because what was happening without the physical presence of the facilitator, for the students to take the instructions was also not very strong. They realized, and they are smart enough to realize, that we can do away with not listening to what our teacher is saying. So the comprehension level of whatever chapters, subjects taught was very low in the first 2 weeks or perhaps a month. Anybody who is making a claim that the online classes were completely comprehensible from the very first day in the school, for the school students, I'm talking only about the school level, that statement is perhaps not true. So what happens eventually? There is a huge backlog of the syllabus. I'm talking totally in terms of academics. And therein, both the teachers and the students and the parents, again I'm talking about that very strong triangle, which actually is the pivot of any education sector, were at loggerheads. They didn't know what to do. So I've just told you 4 of the very major challenges which was faced, but again, challenges were overcome as the online classes proceeded. The parents got used to it. They started adhering to what the schools wanted. The teachers got more savvy with the whole concept. They were more confident in taking the classes. They knew how to dig out the answers when the questions were being thrown across the screen. They knew how to make the students write back in their own houses, in their living rooms, through the screen sharing. And I think we must salute the teaching fraternity for doing this, or for, getting into this huge leap, and successfully so, because as I mentioned earlier, there was no training for this kind of a classroom situation to happen. So the challenges were many. I've just mentioned few, as I told you, and the challenges would have remained had the online classes continued. But the teaching fraternity in India, especially in Bengal, has a very, very strong way of overcoming all kinds of hurdles. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. I think this basically reminds us that as teachers, we are not only trying to train the students, but we have also performed the role of a second parent, and we have proved ourselves during the pandemic that we not only teach them in class, but we also try to look after their needs and their requirements and help them pursue their education in the best possible way as a second parent. My next question is to you, Madam Prasad. What do you think should be the message that we should send to the parents in order to bridge this digital gender divide that exists today?
Thank you so much for bringing up a very, very pertinent point. And I'll take the cue from ma'am and share with you some personal experiences. As the director of the school, I sit into interviews when prospective parents come for the admission of their children. And this is the season when admissions are going on. So when I find it very interesting to observe the dynamics, because obviously there is no question of testing a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old child. When the parent comes and is seated with the child, we ask the parent something, and before the parent can respond, we notice that the child is already fighting to pull the mobile phone out of his father's pocket. He is so used to playing, and then it's very interesting, because say the child is trying to pull the mobile phone out of the father's pocket. From the other side, the mother will say, "Chup kore bosho, chup kore bosho." Because, they think, my goodness, there goes my child's prospects of admission into this school. But it tells a story. And the story is that the child is incapable of sitting for even 3 minutes without having access to that mobile phone. And the tragedy is that the father then proceeds to give the phone to the child, and the child then sits back very happily with a beatific smile on his face, and then knows a 3-year-old child who cannot read and cannot recognize numbers then proceeds to unlock the phone and go to YouTube, and he knows exactly how to navigate through all these apps. Now, how has this been made possible? It has been made possible because of the collaboration and, in fact, the blessings of the parent. Because the parent then smiles at us and says, "Janen to, amar bachchata khub intelligent, shob pare." Now, the parent is actually taking pride in all this. And then if we ask the parent, do you go out with your child? Do you take your child to the park? Do you play with a ball with the child? The answer is, oh, we are so busy at work. We have such long hours at work. where is the time? So our message that I would like to say is what the parents need to give is time. And personally, I'm a little tired of this expression, oh, we spend quality time. What is this quality time? What is the quality in that time? Is something that I'm a little suspicious of. Because what I feel is that so-called quality time is actually spent with everyone on their own devices and periodic or in front of the television and periodically looking up and monosyllabic responses. One last experience that I would like to share, and that again is a message to the parents, and that is at least meal times. I appreciate the fact that in most families now we have both parents, and we are talking about women's empowerment, and more women are working. So we have families where both parents are working, but at least if dinner time can be family time, when they communicate with each other in real time and not through devices. I have noticed recently at a friend's wedding, a friend's daughter's wedding, I had the opportunity to go and observe a number of children around me, and I was so saddened because, you know, in a wedding, in a typical Bengali biye bari, there's so much to see. I mean, there's so much color, there is so much interesting food, there are so many, I mean, every little scene that is going on around you can be made into a film. There's so much to talk about. And what was this child doing? The child was sitting, no prizes for guessing. The parent had given the child a mobile phone. The child was happily engaged in the mobile phone. Periodically, the child was opening its mouth, and the mother seated beside the child was spooning in 1 spoon of biryani at a time and making the child eat. The child had no clue about what he was eating. They had no clue about all the interesting things going around in the biye bari. And all the child did was being engrossed in whatever that child was watching in the mobile phone. So my submission is, if parents could devote some time to simple conversation. I know that some time ago Mrs. Kaur mentioned we are perhaps speaking like dinosaurs. But I feel that when we grew up, the amount we learned from these simple dinner time conversations, from the stories that we heard in the afternoons lying on the bed beside grandparents, there is much merit in all of that. And if we could go back and bring back some of those age-old values, I think Gen Alpha will benefit enormously. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Prasad. Very rightly pointed out, we do see nowadays many such incidents as you have narrated so far. One last question to Dr. Mishra. You know, the challenges that Gen Alpha faces today, or the students they are facing today, is definitely psychological stress, as pointed out by most of you in this panel. So, what message would you like to give to these students, to the Gen Alpha, as to how they can, you know, combat these phases of psychological stress that they go with?
Before I answer your question, I would like to say a few things about what Mrs. Prasad has said just now. Because as a psychotherapist, also I am an educationist. I was principal of Bethune College. So we do get cases where these children, especially adolescent children, they actually have this very big problem of addiction to mobile. an addiction to social media. And many of my patients who come to me, their parents come with the complaint that his results and his grades are falling because he simply cannot give up his mobile. And it is one of the major tasks of mine in order to let them to explore what they actually find so attractive and to make them aware of the imaginary and the fantastic nature of what they are seeing and what the social reality is. So that is something very, very aptly pointed out to you, but it is also leading not only to problems related to academic failure, etc. It is also leading to problems related to interpersonal relationship, as you have pointed out also, because children simply do not are interested in talking with people. There are two children of Gen Alpha in my own family, and I see that my 6-year-old grandnephew, he would ask, he would take the mobile of his mother, Mama, 5 minutes ke liye de do, Mama, 5 minutes ke liye de do, and Mama will ultimately give it, and he will just go to other room and will start watching whatever it is. And of course, there is this question of subjects which are really not suitable for children. And once, I think a few days back, he opened the mobile and said, oh, this is Netflix. And he is 6 years old. So I asked his mother that take away the mobile from him. So this is a real major problem. The another problem which it is giving, and I think it is also related with your question. A student came to me who was about 21 years old. She was an engineering student studying in a very good engineering college. And she came because she failed in one of the subjects. She was considered to be a very good student. Her parents were devastated. And she came to me slowly when she started opening up. She said when she was in the first year, she actually participated in many activities, drama, college activities, etc. And then she used to post all these things in social media. And then it is her language. She said, you know, ma'am, on one day I even got 600 likes. So 600 likes. This is another thing that every time you actually post something on the Facebook or on social media, and then you go back and see how many likes you have gotten. So that is something which is creating another stress, in fact. How much I have been liked, how much admiration and how much appreciation I actually got. It took her 2 years and a very bad result in order to understand that what she was craving for is really only in imagination. She said, now that I have failed, no one actually comes to me, no one talks to me, and no one actually likes the posts that I have posted on the media. So it is one of the important factors that children have to understand what is real, what is imaginary, and what it actually gives you the real worth, and not the likes or the thumbs up that you are actually seeking. About the Gen Alpha psychological trait, you are coming to your question that you have asked. Gen Alpha actually will have a lot of information. It is predicted that it will be a generation which will have most information at its hand. It will also be, its future will be safe, it will be much more knowledgeable than Gen Z, and it will also be probably wealthiest generation. All these are okay, but the stress actually comes because you simply have to master all the information that has been given to you. When I was a student of psychology, I think Anindita will second me, when we used to study the Woodworth book and we used to study the chapter on intelligence, we read that if a child suffers from developmental disability, has low IQ, it will be easier for him to conduct his life in a rural area. Because a rural area life is much less complicated. But if the same child, for example, is shifted from a village to Kolkata, it will be very difficult for him because he has to learn how to deal with trams and cars and vehicular traffic and telephones and radio and all the other gadgets, etc. Otherwise, he simply won't be able to live there. So similar experience I had, namely when in 2010, I went to America, and when I was coming back to Kolkata, there was a very big line on the airport for check-in. And everything was automatic. You have to do everything. Now, I knew quite a few things, but I did not know quite a few things also. So I was very stressed. I said, okay, there is time going away. Time was passing by. So how to do it? Anyway, my Jamai was there, so he actually helped me do all the things. So just imagine that Gen Alpha actually will have to constantly on its toe. They have to learn new computer languages, they have to learn new technologies, they have to learn new gadgets. Everything has to be learned, otherwise you simply cannot live in that particular technological age, and you will be ridiculed by your peers, just as we were ridiculed when we didn't read a book. Somebody would ask, have you read Aldous Huxley's Brave New World? And if I say no, so you are actually derided a little bit. So similarly, they simply cannot function unless and until they master all the information, they learn new computer languages, they are good at technological advancement. And children, obviously, not all children are of equal intellectual aptitude or equal intellectual ability. So that also creates a lot of stress on them. Actually, how to deal with this kind of stress? I think the problem actually will be the same. You simply have to, just as we teach our children nowadays how to deal with examination stress, and we tell them that learning is not something that actually, learning is something that actually you do for the sake of learning, not because it gives you good marks or it gives you good jobs. And they will then say that, okay, but if you don't get good marks, you don't get good jobs, and then your friends do not treat you well, and you actually fall behind. So these are the things that are creating stress now. It is the same thing that will create stress to Gen Alpha. Probably, I think we simply have to give them more time so that they can actually learn the value of physical interpersonal relationship, because the real value of interpersonal relationship, where they can talk with people, where they simply will not be face to face with something which is abstract, something which is written in computer language, something which is virtual. If you actually are face to face, then a lot of stress actually goes away, lot of stress. If you talk with a teacher rather than a robot, a physically present teacher, then that teacher reduces a lot of stress. How? Because he will say, okay, you actually are doing good. And he knows that this teacher means it. It is not fed into the computer that each time you solve a problem, the computer say, you have done excellent, oh, you are making good progress. So getting a kind of reply from a physically present person who is in relation to yourself, in a physical relation, in a warm relation with a sense of belongingness, that goes a long way to reduce your stress. You also learn that you are valued not only for your information, but you are valued because you are a human being. Your mother loves you not because you are a highly intelligent person. Your mother loves you because you are her son or you are her daughter. So that is why it is one of the important things that I think should be much more important and should be taken very good care of by the mothers of Gen Alpha. Other stories, other things are the same which we are these days using, like you spend time in physical exercise, you kind of sleep well, etc. Those are the strategies which we still apply in case of reduction of stress, like doing yoga, doing meditation, doing mindfulness. These actually will, that time also will remain. But the extra thing that actually will be needed, I think, in my opinion, is more personal relationship, more physical interaction, which will provide the child with a sense of security, a sense of belongingness, and a sense of well-being. So he will have more confidence and will consider himself as worthy of being, of learning things.
Thank you, Dr. Mishra. This discussion regarding the challenges and the opportunities and what can be the best possible ways to, tackle the challenges of Gen Alpha, we can carry on and on. We will just have one last question for our panelist, Madam Mazumdar. Innovation and technology for gender equality. How do you think can this be undertaken in the best possible way so that this gender divide that we are facing today can be minimized, if not totally obliterated?
Gender divide is something that has been ingrained in our minds from a very, very early age. Technology is something that has sprung up in the last few years and has engulfed all our lives. Boys and girls together, they are into the wrap of technology. I'll just give you a very simple example. Perhaps I'll take my own example. I'm an ex-student of Loreto Convent, Ranchi. So I was born and brought up in Ranchi, not Kolkata. And that's a small town, a beautiful town, which most of you must be knowing. And I went to a convent school. There's a reason why I'm saying all this. So, and my mother would very proudly say, I want my daughter to go to a convent. And that she mentioned the term convent time and again, because I want her to be very well-mannered, A, and very fluent in the English language, B. I still don't understand, for me to learn these things, why was I sent to a convent? Perhaps there were no other better schools, right? So carrying on from there, when I went to a convent, I had only girl friends, girls as friends. When I was very young, and I had playmates. So when I was very young, I had playmates till the age of 7 or 8, both boys and girls. So we would all play together. But thereafter, the divide began. Girls would play with girls and boys would play with boys. When we were in classes 9 and 10, and it was very important to interact with those very bright boy students of some other boy schools, we did not actually have that platform. In those days, there was no platform apart from physically interacting with each other or talking to each other. When I came to college, I'm a student of St. Xavier's, Kolkata. I was thrown into a gamut of a co-educational scenario. I realized the importance of being with the other gender. I realized how important and how enlightening and empowering it is for any student, any girl student, to be able to interact with other bright students of the other gender. So why is this cliched form or the cliched quotation that convent education is very good? I don't think this holds good anymore. Another very, very gross misconception amongst many others is that when girls and boys are very openly allowed to interact, there is often a negative flip side, which I think should be absolutely blown up in the air. Now, coming back to today's scenario, I have given a reference story for a specific purpose. Coming back to today's scenario, when we talk about I'll talk about girl empowerment because we are dealing with girl students in our school. I would not be knowing much about the college students. When we talk about girl empowerment, we need to make the boys and the girls understand completely that you two are equally responsible for any of your act, whether it is social, whether it is something towards the school. For example, when I was teaching in my previous school as principal, Asian International School, there was a handicapped boy. And he had to be wheeled out of the class through the ramp to the bus. So for him to get onto the wheelchair was a challenge. And at that point of time, this was some 10 years back, and I regret my decision till date, I had given instructions to two very able-bodied boys to carry this boy, slump him on the wheelchair, and two other boys to wheel him down to the bus bay, and two other boys for this child to be helped onto the bus. So I thought this was all very congenial and all done in a very, very good spirit. But today, when I'm slightly more enlightened and educated about girl empowerment, I wish I had not said that. I wish I had actually told two girl students to do the first bit, two other girl students to do the second bit, and the third set to do the third bit. So we basically have to develop a change in our thinking. Today, when we hire coaches for badminton, for swimming, for any other physical activity, most of the parents come and tell us, is there going to be a lady coach? This appeal is very strong, especially for swimming coaches. We were trying to interview many, many swimming coaches, and for some reason, maybe it was very coincidental, I found out that the people who have come for the interviews, the men are far better than the women. But if you are going to have both the girls and the boys into the pool to learn swimming, that is the basic fundamental necessity, why are we looking for a lady coach? Why not a male coach? Whoever is the best at its job. So talking about technology, Gen Alpha, a lot has been said about Gen Alpha. I have the same thoughts in mind, nothing much different. But to talk about empowerment, I think we will have to start at a very, very grassroots level. And this basically has to percolate down to the students. They have to understand from a very young age that there is basically no difference in the gender. There is no difference in the learning outcome, the way we develop, the way we grow up, and how we are going to achieve what we are going to achieve. We have to start very strategically. We have to plan it out very, very thoughtfully, and we have to ingrain the correct thoughts in the minds of the parents and the students. Thank you.
Thank you. This discussion has been really very fruitful, where we have not only discussed the challenges that Gen Alpha faces, but what can be the best possible ways in which the education system, as well as teachers, parents, and the students, the Gen Alpha themselves, can help to tide over this crisis. It is important that, yes, innovation and technology cannot be predicted. There would be advancements going on, but we have to adapt ourselves and ensure that our constricted mindsets are changed and we become open to only one gender, and that is humanity, and respect and cherish it. Thank you very much to all my panelists, and thank you, Honorable Vice Chancellor Sir and Madam Ina Bose, for organizing this session. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that wonderful, wonderful panel. It was really... Hello? Hello? Done. Okay, thank you so much for that wonderful, wonderful panel. It's an eye-opener, of course. The issues, the germane factors that are so relevant today, that we faced during the pandemic, and that creates havoc in our lives as well. So much detailed description of the issues pertaining to that. Thank you so much. It was really an engrossing session. I'm sure our next panel, our next session will be equally as interesting, as we have a mix of achievers from different sectors. You know, we have, of course, very famous, very prolific theatre personality, Madam Uma Jhunjhunwala, with us today. A big round of applause, please. We're extremely lucky that she's with us today. She's taken out time from her busy schedule to be with us. Of course, her contribution in the field of art, theatre, direction is immense. One of those few women directors who wreaked havoc and is still going strong in that theatre arena. Thank you so much, ma'am, for showing us your beautiful dreams. Of course, we have Dr. Ashima Mukhopadhyay with us as the second panelist. She has done immense work in the ovarian cancer-related field, and her work is being cited, and now she's a part of the Techno India group. We are extremely lucky to have her. She's traveled the world and she has dealt with issues relating to women and cancer at from a very ground level. We're extremely lucky to have her with us today in the panel. And of course, the third panelist, of course, is a little unconventional because she is, starting out, as I would say, but yet her achievements cannot be undermined. She is the first woman to be selected as a member of International Gynecology Cancer Society as part of the nursing work group. She brings immense knowledge to the team, and it is of course a wonderful pleasure to have you with us, Ms. Dona Chakraborty. I would request all the panelists to please come up onto the stage and the Vice Chancellor to stay back along with the OSD to felicitate our panelists for this session. I think he's come back, yes. The Vice Chancellor, I would request the Vice Chancellor and OSD the Chancellor to felicitate our panelists. Ma'am, if you please come up on this stage, please. Here we have stories from 3 different backgrounds, and we're looking forward to, the topic is of course Digit All. We are following the UN Convention for the topic, and we will hear our 3 panelists speak from their perspective on the topic. Our session, of course, will be moderated. Dr. Ashima Mukherjee, yes, a big round of applause for her, please. Narumuma Jhunjhunwala, of course, she is. A big round of applause, please. You're so lucky to have her with us. It's tremendous. It's actually, I'm getting goosebumps to have her here with us. We watched her plays, we watched her direct on stage, and it has been an utmost pleasure for us. And Dona Chakraborty. A big round of applause for her, please. She's the first woman, as I said, to be selected as a member of International Gynecology Cancer Society as part of the nursing work group. She's first in India to receive this position. It's, of course, a great pleasure for us to have her with us today. The session will be moderated by Professor Dr. Meenal Parikh, the head of the Department of Mass Communication and Journalism Department. Our session today is being live streamed from our SNU page, and that is being done by the students of Mass Communication and Journalism Department. A big round of applause for them as well. Thank you.
A very good afternoon to all of you. The first session that we had it was a panel of teachers that we had, principals who've been dealing with students and the kind of struggle that they've been facing with this digital revolution that has happened. So now another panel that we have today, it's a mix, like medicine and theater. So one is creative and one is absolutely research. So I would try to blend both, and we would like to focus on, I think digital revolution has come, so we have to accept it. So at the end of the day, from your forte, from your table, from your end, how this revolution, we've been talking about gender equality, and here let us talk of all gender. Let's not talk of man or a woman. I think the LGBT community is also here. So all kind of gender that we are talking, at the end of the day, from your table, from your perspective, how much this innovation or this digital revolution that has happened, do we feel that at the end of the day, there is some thought on it, people are talking about it, we are discussing it, and at the end of the day, the youth is responding to it. Because it is Gen Alpha that we are talking, and we have two who are almost very young, and Umadi is also one of the youngest theatre personality that we have. So one, I would like to focus on this, if you agree with me, this is one. And secondly, with this digital revolution that has happened, how much our profession has taken a change, whether it's your oncology and theatre. It's been a strugglesome phase for all of us to tell the youth, please come and watch play. And now you don't have people to come and watch plays. What next? What do we do? How do we draw audience? How do we keep alive theatre? And secondly, in medicine, this sudden COVID, and then, balancing humanity and staying there, being the frontline warrior, and keeping in pace with this whole digital revolution, how people helped each other at this platform. Let us not forget how this digital innovation did save so many lives. So first, I would start with Umadi. Umadi, you can mix Hindi and English both if you want. So first question to you, that do you think that this digital innovation and this that has happened, people are still interested in theatre?
आप सबको मेरा नमस्कार और मुझे आज इस डिस्कशन में शामिल करने के लिए आपका शुक्रिया। मिनल ने बहुत अच्छा प्रश्न पूछा कि इस डिजिटल जो हमारा पिछले 3 सालों से या 2 सालों से पूरे तौर पे हम जिस डिजिटल दुनिया में हैं, क्या थिएटर को हार्म पहुंचा है या फ़ायदा हुआ है, हम किस संघर्ष से गुजर रहे हैं। मेडिकल और थिएटर एक पॉइंट पर आकर एक जैसा हो जाता है। डॉक्टर जब तक पेशेंट को छू के नहीं देखेगा, वो उसका ट्रीटमेंट नहीं कर सकता। ऑनलाइन ट्रीटमेंट हो ही नहीं सकता। हाँ, जो हमारे पुराने पेशेंट हैं उनको हम सजेशन दे पाते हैं ऑनलाइन, लेकिन ऑनलाइन ट्रीटमेंट नहीं होता। ठीक उसी तरह से ऑनलाइन थिएटर नहीं हो सकता, क्योंकि हम जब मंच पर होते हैं तो सामने की कुर्सियाँ भरी होनी चाहिए दर्शकों से, जो हमारे दुखी होने पर दुखी हो, हमारे हंसने पर वो हंसे, ताली बजाए, और एट द एंड ऑफ प्ले हमारे परफॉर्मेंस के बाद वो खड़े होकर हमें एक स्टैंडिंग ओवेशन दे। और वही हमारी सारी एनर्जी, वही हमारी सारी ताकत होता है दूसरे शो की तैयारी करने के लिए। तो जब ये लॉकडाउन शुरू हुआ और कुछ लोगों ने ऑनलाइन थिएटर फेस्टिवल भी शुरू किया, मैं इसके अगेंस्ट में हमेशा से रही, क्योंकि थिएटर का संबंध सीधे सीधे दर्शकों से है। तो फिर अब क्या करेंगे? सब घर में बंद हैं, और घर में बंद होने के बाद जो डिप्रेशन का आना शुरू हुआ, चाहे वो पेरेंट्स में हो, बच्चों में हो, आर्टिस्ट में हो, डॉक्टर्स में हो, कोई भी एक भी ऐसा इंसान उस डिप्रेशन से नहीं बच पा रहा था। और सबके अपने अपने लॉजिक थे डिप्रेशंस में जाने के, और वो सही थे। अब उससे उबरने के लिए जो रास्ते निकाले जा रहे थे फॉर द टाइम बीइंग, जो ज़रूरी थे, तो हमने क्या शुरू किया? हमने ऑनलाइन रिसाइटेशन शुरू किया। क्या तो हम अपने आर्टिस्टों से कहते कि वो अपनी पोइट्री, किसी भी पोइट की पोइट्री या स्टोरी रिकॉर्ड करके भेजें, उसे हम फेसबुक पे चला रहे हैं, व्हाट्सअप यूट्यूब पे चला रहे हैं, या फिर हमने एक समय बांधा कि इतने बजे ये स्क्रिप्ट रीडिंग होगी या पोइट्री रीडिंग होगी, तो पर्टिकुलर टाइमिंग में कुछ लोग फेसबुक पर या यूट्यूब पर जुड़ जाते थे। अब ये कुछ लोग कौन होते थे? नेचुरली जो साहित्य से जुड़े हुए लोग थे, या फिर ऐसे कुछ घरेलू लोग भी जुड़ पाए उन दिनों, जो जिनको टीवी में भी ना वो एक रास्ता का बोध होने लगा था, क्योंकि इस लॉकडाउन के ज़माने में ही ये सारे OTT आए, नेटफ्लिक्स हो, अमेज़न हो, और तरह तरह के सारे OTT इसी दौरान आए। और इसके आने के कारण थिएटर को नुकसान नहीं हुआ, हाँ फिल्म इंडस्ट्री को ज़रूर नुकसान हुआ, क्योंकि OTT में खर्च कम है और बहुत आसान है, और वहीं पर फिल्म का एक विस्तार अलग है, उसका स्वरूप, उसका फॉर्म अलग है। तो कुछ घरेलू जिसे हम कहें जो हाउसवाइफ्स थी, हाउसवाइफ भी शब्द ठीक नहीं, क्योंकि काम तो अब लॉकडाउन के दौरान सभी को घर के काम करने पड़े थे, झाड़ू पोंछा से लेकर खाना बनाना, बर्तन साफ करना, कपड़े धोना, घर में सारे लोगों के काम बट गए थे। यानी बच्चे को भी करना होगा, हस्बैंड को भी करना होगा, फादर को भी करना होगा, मदर को भी करना होगा, हर किसी का ये जो काम बटा। मुझे लगता है कि लॉकडाउन के दौरान ये एक चीज़ थोड़ी सी अच्छी हो गई कि हर व्यक्ति थोड़ा सा रिस्पॉन्सिबल हो गया अपनी फैमिली की रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी को लेकर। हर किसी को लगने लगा कि ये काम हमें थोड़ा करना है। और उसी दौरान हमने जब ऑनलाइन रिसाइटेशंस या स्टोरी रीडिंग शुरू की, क्योंकि कुछ तो ज़रूरी था उस डिप्रेशन से बाहर आने के लिए। लेकिन जैसे ही 2021 में तो खैर जो सेकेंड वेव आया था, और वो जो तूफ़ान आया था, जब ऐसा लग रहा था कि अब दुनिया बचेगी नहीं, हर रोज़ हर पल खबरें, लोगों की जाने की खबरें ऐसे आ रही थी जैसे पेड़ से पत्ते झड़ रहे हों, जैसे पतझड़ का मौसम आ गया हो, लोग जा रहे हैं, एक खबर रुकी नहीं कि दूसरी खबर, दूसरी रुकी नहीं कि तीसरी खबर। ये जो 2021 के मार्च, अप्रैल और मई में ये जो सेकेंड वेव का कहर आया था, उस दौरान और ज़्यादा ज़रूरी हुआ था कि हम थिएटर वाले, हम आर्ट्स वाले, हम जो परफॉर्मिंग आर्ट्स से जुड़े हुए लोग हैं, वो ऑनलाइन ही सही, क्योंकि बाहर निकलकर काम करने की कंडीशंस नहीं थी, ऑडिटोरियम्स बंद, स्कूल कॉलेजेस बंद, और अभी हमने स्कूल की कंडीशंस सुनी, तो सारी चीज़ें जो बिखर गई, टूट गई, और लोग जो जिस अवसाद में जाने लगे, अपने लोगों के जाने की खबरों से जिस पीड़ा में जाने लगे, उस दौरान हमने ये फैसला किया था कि हम बाहर जाके थिएटर नहीं कर पाएंगे, लेकिन हम ऑनलाइन कुछ तो कर सकते हैं। और हमने ये बाकायदा एक मिशन के तौर पे चलाया। हमने अलग अलग लोगों को जिनसे हमारी जान पहचान नहीं थी, उनको जोड़ा कि प्लीज़ आप हमारे लिए पोइट्री रिसाइट कीजिए, प्लीज़ आप स्टोरी रीड कर दीजिए, हम ऑनलाइन चलाएंगे। हमने स्ट्रीम यार्ड पर ऑनलाइन चलाया, फेसबुक पे चलाया। तो ये सारी चीज़ों को, ये चीज़ें हमारे लिए वरदान साबित हुई, क्योंकि उस वक्त वरदान साबित हुई। ये बात और है कि अब इसकी जो हमारे बच्चे एडिक्ट हो गए हैं, इसकी जो दिक्कतें आ रही हैं मीनान, वो बड़ी भारी भरकम आ रही है, क्योंकि अब लोगों को लगता है कि OTT में जो चीज़ें देखने मिल रही, तो उसके लिए वो थिएटर देखने के लिए क्यों जाए। ये चीज़ें आई, हमने जब ये चीज़ें शुरू की तो हमें लगा कि नहीं, ये एक अच्छा माध्यम हो सकता है। लेकिन इन बाद के दिनों में 2022 के में आते आते हमें लगा कि अब लोगों को लगता है कि नहीं, बाहर जाने की ज़रूरत ही नहीं है। हम मोबाइल में, टीवी में, लैपटॉप में, किसी में भी हम अपनी मनचाही चीज़ों को देख पा रहे हैं। थिएटर से कुछ दिनों के लिए लोग दूर हुए। हमने 2022 की जनवरी से, बल्कि दिसंबर से वापस शुरुआत कर दी थी। हम स्टेज पे जाने लग गए, हम लोगों को बुलाने। लोग डर से नहीं आ रहे थे कि नहीं कहीं हम कोरोना की शिकार नहीं हो जाए। ऑडिटोरियम भी 50% पर अवेलेबल था, एक सीट छोड़कर एक ऐसे थे। तो ये दिक्कतें जो शुरू हुई, वो आज तक इसका असर बना हुआ है कि लोग थिएटर से थोड़ा कटे हैं और इसीलिए हम सबकी मुहिम फिर से शुरू हुई है कि हम विद्यार्थियों को, स्टूडेंट्स को या दूसरे लोगों को हम थिएटर की ओर लाने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं।
उमा दी, एक पर्सनल सवाल मैं पूछूंगी। बहुत 2 मेजर लॉस आपके खुद हुए, जिसके बारे में बहुत डिटेल में हम नहीं जाएंगे। बहुत कुछ रुक गया, आपने दोबारा उसको शुरू किया, तो वो कितना स्ट्रगलसम था? क्योंकि सब कुछ ऑनलाइन आ गया। एज अ वुमन थिएटर पर्सनालिटी आपको दोबारा से अपने ग्रुप को खड़ा करना है, और लिटिल थेस्पियन का जो एक फ्लैग है उसको रखना है, और ये लॉस भी चल रहा है, उसमें आपके नए जनरेशन के आपके फॉलोअर्स भी हैं, तो कितना टफ होता है, एज अ वुमन। वी टॉक अबाउट वुमेन एम्पावरमेंट, बट अंदर का ये जो अंतर्द्वंद है, हंसते रहना लेकिन सबको दिखाना सब ठीक है।
मिनल, मैं आपको बताऊं कि 2 नहीं बल्कि 14 अप्रैल से 30 अप्रैल के दौरान मैंने अपने परिवार के 7 लोगों को खोया। और जिन 2 की आप बात कर रहे हैं, जिनकी मैं जान थी और उन दोनों के लिए मैं उनकी जान थी। 14 अप्रैल को मैंने अपने फादर को खोया और 20 अप्रैल को मैंने अपने हस्बैंड को। मैं और असर दोनों मिलके थिएटर करते थे, और तो उसके बाद जाहिर सी बात है कि 7 लोगों को खोने के बाद अंदर से हिम्मत टूट गई थी, जो इसके पहले मैं कह रही थी। लेकिन उसके बाद मुझे धीरे धीरे ये लगने लगा कि सिर्फ मैंने नहीं खोया है। मैंने जो आपको कहा ना कि पतझड़ की तरह लोग झड़ रहे हैं, खबरें रोज़ रोज़ आ रही हैं। शुरू के 4-5 महीने मेरे लिए बहुत मुश्किल वाले साबित हुए, क्योंकि आपने जब कहा कि विमेंस के लिए बड़ा मुश्किल होता है, ये फैक्ट है कि इमोशनली हमारे लिए या मेरे लिए ये बहुत मुश्किल था इससे उभर कर आना। मैंने चूँकि मेरी छोटी सिस्टर इन लॉ, मेरे छोटे भाई की वाइफ भी 27 अप्रैल को उसने भी हमारा साथ छोड़ा, तो घर में मैंने अपने भाई को देखा, उसने बहुत जल्दी कॉप अप किया, उभरा। मैं आज तक नहीं उभर पाई। तो ये फीमेल और मेल का फ़र्क है। इमोशनली जो पुरुष होते हैं, जो मेल होते हैं, वो शायद स्ट्रॉन्ग होते हैं या स्ट्रॉन्ग दिखने की कोशिश करते हैं, और हम स्ट्रॉन्ग दिख भी नहीं पाते। वो हमारी आंखें बोल जाती हैं कि हम कितना दिखावा कर रहे हैं और कितने स्ट्रॉन्ग हैं। लेकिन चूँकि मैं थिएटर से थी, थिएटर हमें ज़िंदगी देता है, थिएटर हमें अनुशासित करता है, डिसिप्लिन्ड बनाता है, थिएटर हमें सोसाइटी के बारे में सोचने के लिए मजबूर करता है, थिएटर हमें लोगों के इमोशंस को साथ लेकर चलना सिखाता है। ये थिएटर है जिसने, मैं बड़े फ़ख्र से कह सकती हूँ कि मैंने उन दिनों इतने लोगों की, चूँकि मैं मेडिकली काउंसलर नहीं हूँ, लेकिन थिएटर के ज़रिए उन दिनों मैंने कईयों की काउंसलिंग की है, कईयों को मैंने प्लेटफॉर्म दिया है, और वो उस डिप्रेशन से बाहर आए हैं। मतलब कि वो मेरे पास चिट्ठियाँ आई हैं कि उमा मैम, आपकी वजह से आज हम इस स्थिति से बाहर निकल पाए। तो ये थिएटर है, नॉट उमा, मतलब कि उमा की वजह से नहीं, वो थिएटर की वजह से। थिएटर ने मुझे ये सिखाया कि सोसाइटी के प्रति मेरी जो रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है, मैं रिस्पॉन्सिबल हूँ, मुझे देखना है। मैंने अपने परिवार में भी उस अनुशासन को बना के रखा। फादर को खोने के बाद मेरे 2 बच्चे हैं। एक तो DPS स्कूल की प्रिंसिपल मैम जो बैठी थी, उन्हीं की स्कूल में मेरा बेटा अभी क्लास 12 में है। मेरी बेटी भी उसी स्कूल से पास होकर निकली थी, और लॉकडाउन के दौरान ही ग्रेजुएशन भी हो गया। उन बच्चों ने जी कॉलेज ही नहीं देखा, कॉलेज लाइफ को नहीं जी पाए। लेकिन उस दौरान बहुत ज़रूरी था कि हम अपने बच्चों को साइकोलॉजिकली किस तरह से डील करें। उसमें मेरा थिएटर बहुत काम आया, बहुत हेल्पफुल हुआ। मैंने बच्चों के लिए समय बांधा, हर चीज़ के लिए समय था। आपको मोबाइल में उन क्लास करनी है, और लैपटॉप पे या डेस्कटॉप पे क्लास करनी है, तो वहाँ पर हम नहीं हैं, लेकिन हम हैं मौजूद। हमें उन्हें बताना था कि मेरा मोबाइल साइड में है, हमने भी अपना ऑफिशियल काम कर लिया, आपने अपना स्कूल कॉलेज कर लिया, अब मोबाइल या ये जो भी हमारा ये गैजेट है वो हमारे हाथ में नहीं है, अब आपके भी हाथ में नहीं रहेगा। हमें स्ट्रगल करना पड़ा, हमने अपने बच्चों को ट्रेंड वैसे ही किया। फादर के जाने के बाद चीज़ें इतनी ज़्यादा बदली कि थोड़ी सी दिक्कतें आईं, तो मुझे एक माँ के तौर पे भी बाहर निकलना था। और एक सोसाइटी के लिए जो मैं अपने आप को बहुत ज़्यादा रिस्पॉन्सिबल मानती हूँ, मुझे उस तौर पे भी मेरे जो डॉक्टर हैं, डॉक्टर कौशिक मेरे मेडिसिन डॉक्टर हैं, या मेरी जो गायनी है डॉक्टर पौशाली, इन लोगों ने लेकिन मेरी बड़ी मदद की थी। जो प्रॉब्लम्स मेरे साथ क्रिएट हुई थी, मेरे डॉक्टर कौशिक ने हर बार मुझे कहा आपको तो कुछ नहीं हुआ, जबकि मेरा अभी लास्ट मेरी जो रिपोर्ट हुई, क्योंकि मुझे 2 बार कोरोना हुए, लास्ट रिपोर्ट में आया कि मेरा 40% लंग्स डैमेज और वो ठीक नहीं होगा, तो मुझे 60% पे सर्वाइव करना है। तो उसने कहा कि नहीं, आप तो 60% क्यों, आप तो 200% भी सर्वाइव करेंगे, बिकॉज यू आर इन थिएटर। और थिएटर में आप जो चीज़ें कर पा रही हैं, आपको मैं बताऊं 100 में से 99 लोग नहीं कर पा रहे हैं। तो ये कॉम्प्लीमेंट, इसको मैंने कॉम्प्लीमेंट के तौर पे लिया। तो मैंने कभी सोचा ही नहीं कि मैं नहीं सोचती हूँ, मुझे लगता है कि मैं 100 में से उन 1 लोगों में से हूँ जो कुछ कर पाने की कंडीशन में है, तो उसे करना चाहिए। उसके अंदर, मेरे अंदर वो सोशल वैल्यूज़ जो हैं, उसकी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी मुझे आप बच्चों के लिए या अपनी ऑडियंस के लिए या अपनी रीडर्स के लिए, क्योंकि जब मैं लिखती हूँ, मेरे लिखे जब मेरे पाठक पढ़ते हैं तो वो मुझे बहुत अप्रिशिएट करते हैं, मेरे पास लेटर्स आते हैं। और आज के वक्त में, जबकि आपके पास मोबाइल में आप सब कुछ लिखते हैं, मेरे पास आज भी लेटर्स आते हैं हैंड रिटन, मतलब कि और मैं उनका जवाब देती हूँ। जब वो मेरे लिखी कहानियाँ, मेरी लिखी कविताएं या नाटक पढ़ते हैं, तो वो मुझे चिट्ठी भेजते हैं। तो ये जो चीज़ें हैं, ये आपको भी समझने की ज़रूरत है कि जब जिस चीज़ की ज़रूरत थी, गैजेट की ज़रूरत थी, हम डिजिटलाइज हुए, लेकिन अब हम डिजिटलाइज होकर उसका कैसे प्रयोग करें, उपयोग करें, दुरुपयोग न, उसका मिसयूज़ ना करें, बल्कि उसको कैसे हम इस्तेमाल में लाएं कि लोगों को ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा फ़ायदा पहुँचे। इसलिए नहीं कि मुझे 600 लाइक्स मिले या 1000 लाइक्स मिले। मेरे फेसबुक पर मैं एक्टिव नहीं हूँ, लेकिन एक्टिव हूँ। मैं अपने पोस्ट डालती हूँ, मैं अपनी वीडियोज़ रील्स डालती हूँ, मैं पलट कर नहीं देखती कि मुझे क्या लाइक्स मिले। ये मैंने अपने बच्चों को भी सिखाया, पलट के नहीं देखो, क्योंकि फिर आप बार बार मोबाइल खोलोगे लाइक्स देखने के लिए, कमेंट्स देखने के लिए। नहीं, मुझे लाइक से नहीं मतलब है, क्योंकि मुझे ये पता है कि मेरा ऑडियंस मुझे देख ले रहा है, मेरा रीडर मुझे पढ़ ले रहा है,
जिसको हम लोग कहते हैं द फियर ऑफ मिसिंग आउट,
मिसिंग आउट। यू आर राइट। तो आई एम नॉट फियर, मुझे डर ही नहीं है, क्योंकि मुझे पता है। अभी जब मेरे बारे में बताया कि मैं आई हूँ और ये उनके लिए बड़ी खुशी की बात है, गूज़बम्प्स, तो सोचो ये मुझे सोशल मीडिया पे नहीं मिलेगा। ये जो लाइव सुना, इसने मेरे गूज़बम्प्स किए। मुझे कमेंट नहीं मिलेंगे, कोई फ़र्क नहीं पड़ेगा, लेकिन ये लाइव सुनना, ये एक अलग फीलिंग है। इस अलग फीलिंग को जीने के लिए आपके लिए ज़रूरी है, आप चाहे विमेन्स हो या आप मेल हो, आप पुरुष हो या स्त्री हो, लड़के हो या लड़की हो, आपके लिए ज़रूरी है कि आप गैजेट को साइड में रखकर आप सिर्फ उसका उतना प्रयोग करें जितनी आपको अपनी पब्लिसिटी करनी अपने काम की। उसके बाद आप लोगों से मिले, घर वालों को समय दें, अपने माँ बाप या अपने ग्रैंड पेरेंट्स को या अपने भाई बहनों को, जो भी फैमिली मेम्बर्स है, फ्रेंड्स है, उनके साथ वक्त गुजारेंगे, आप देखेंगे कि आप कितना कुछ क्रिएटिव कर पाएंगे, बहुत क्रिएटिव कर पाएंगे। क्योंकि मैं एक बात हमेशा सिखाती हूँ मिनल, कि बच्चा जब पैदा होता है तो उसके अंदर वो सारे भाव लेकर पैदा होता है, लेकिन बड़े होते होते सिर्फ 3 भाव उसके अंदर रह जाते हैं, एंगर, सैडनेस, हैप्पीनेस। क्या तो वो खुश होकर हंसता है, या दुखी होकर रोता है, या गुस्से में चिल्लाता है। बाकी सारे इमोशंस उसके अंदर में दब जाते हैं। सड़क में कोई गिर गया, उसको हम उठाने की बजाय, उसकी केयर करने की बजाय फ़ोटो खींचते हैं, वीडियो बनाते हैं, सोशल मीडिया पर डालते हैं, अरे अभी मैंने फलाने को देखा, कोई मदद को नहीं आया। अरे कोई नहीं आया, देन व्हाट आर यू डूइंग? आपने क्या किया? आपने क्यों नहीं मदद की? आप मोबाइल को छोड़ देते, आप उसकी मदद करते। तो हम इस सोशल मीडिया के कारण, इस गजट के कारण हम इमोशन को अपने भूलते जा रहे हैं, हम दबा रहे हैं। अंदर में है, उसको आप, जैसे मुझे अभी प्लांट दिया गया, मैं इसमें पानी डालूंगी रोज़? नहीं पानी डालूंगी, सूख जाएगा, मर जाएगा। आप अपने अंदर इमोशन से वाटरिंग कीजिए। अपनी व्यू में आपकी जो इमोशंस हैं, आपके अंदर का जो क्रिएशंस है, उसको वाटरिंग कीजिए अपने थॉट्स से, अपनी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी से। यही आपके वाटर्स होंगे। और फिर आप देखेंगे कि आपको इस गैजेट से, आपको इस डिजिटल से, और आपको इन सारे सोशल मीडिया एंड फलाना ठिकाना ब्ला 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 सबसे आपको कितना फ़ायदा पहुंचेगा।
Thank you, thank you. Thank you, Madi. Ma'am, I would come next to you that with this, the digital reform that has happened, since we belong to the creative world and you were our saviors, I'm taking you in the sense the whole medical fraternity, so I expect that, you're representing that. So ma'am, with this sudden change that happened, do you take this as a blessing that somewhere this was needed to probably get situations in control, because something that came to us which was unknown to us? So from your perspective, how do you take this, as a point of connection where people could connect, people could take help, you could consult, you could help? Do you take that as that, or probably it was challenging for you?
Thank you for the question. I'm an internal anyway, so I'm not an external to you. So I have to thank anyway Professor Chattopadhyay and Madam Ina Bose for calling me here. So before I take your question, I think I need to justify my presence here today, because you called me on the eve of International Women's Day celebration. And sometimes I really feel that I am being called? Am I a special tribe, or am I something special that I need to become on a certain day? I've been doing for a few years now, and every time I kind of think, well, why is it still, am I still something different that I need to suddenly pop up on a certain day and justify my presence? So I think, before I answer your question, I think I just want to, because I see a lot of women out there, I would say, students out there, I just kind of want to say that, while there is no difference, perhaps how you would receive your education and how, as an individual, being a doctor, there is no difference in your neurohumoral circulation or any of your nerves or any of your heart or lung between any gender, right? So that is all same, right? Estrogen is different. It does modulate, the emotional intelligence is certainly different. But then, what you face when you're in your workforce is certainly sometimes is challenging for women, especially, and I would link that to the question that you have asked, how we have dealt during the pandemic, because I work 6 months in UK in the NHS, and I'm sure the scenario is similar in India, and I'll cite you some examples. While 70% of the workforce in NHS is women, but I think that 80% or 90% of people who are in the top, in the management, they are all men. So there is somewhere, and I know I can, because you are sitting over there, that to cross that transition, that you will be getting jobs, you will be doing a lot of things, but then to make that change from there to the top level of decision making, I think we still have, in all societies, a long way to go. And that is the reality. And I think it is partly socio-cultural, because one of the things I see in my patients, in my nursing fraternity, or even my colleagues, that women, I think, once you're doing your education, you are very young to possibly understand this now, but then your career certainly starts speaking up when you are 30, 35, and then you challenge family, your children, your mother, and I think traditionally still, all over the world, it is the women who have to take that charge because of their emotional intelligence. So we are better at something. And it's a matter of pride, actually. It shouldn't be taken as a bad. But what the society still has not come up with us to deal with is to give you the time or compensate for the time. For example, in the Western world, I think they're a little bit better, that you would get maybe leave, or you will get a flexibility in your job, your ranking, your hierarchy will not go down for those 5, 6, 7 years that you are spending in motherhood, and therefore when you come back to work, you are possibly at the similar level. But I find it quite challenging still in India. I would give you my example. When I came back from India to join in a very reputed cancer center in Kolkata, and I'm a surgeon by profession, I operate for 10, 12 hours a day. There were 40 surgeons in Tata. That time there were only 3 women surgeons and 37 male surgeons. So you can imagine that, sometimes it's not only the patient, but, the general perception is that, can you do the job? But still, with all those high qualifications, training and everything and all, the difference in the ratio itself is kind of something which tells you people possibly think somewhere, can you do the job? There has been, and I'm talking because I see this word Gen Alpha. I was struck with my initial memory of facing this word, and that was not Generation Alpha. That was gender alpha. Because I used to be vocal, I had to be vocal because I was putting my ground as a surgeon, walking in that world where I don't see any woman colleague. And then whenever I used to talk or speak, I used to hear all these comments that because I'm speaking, I would be a very good mother-in-law. Or it could be someday some comment coming as that there are a lot of alpha females in our room or in our operating room. By the way, we call our operating room theaters as well. So I took possibly as a theatrical backdrop of where I started. But, these are things, people make comments, whether consciously or unconsciously, and it is sometimes taken as granted. But then, that repetitive friction requires some degree of, persistence or a mental strength to overcome it. I mean, everybody likes a girl when you are sweet and sugary, but nobody wants to see when the sugar coat fades, to see the spine of steel. So that's, this is the society that we are living in, and possibly when you are higher up in your career, you will be facing that atmosphere, and it is about to really learn the skills. And that digitization or your gadgets will not teach you this emotional skill or how to be strong. The skills of how you need to be mentally, physically strong to survive in the world is not a digital technology. So that is something I need to tell you. The second thing I want to tell you, when I operate, I switch off my mobile phone. 10 hours, 12 hours in a day, I wouldn't answer, I wouldn't see. So it is about taking control, you as an individual taking control of what you need to do and want to do for that day, and not let the other environment control what you need to be doing. So for that, again, you are talking about all these gadgets, which is really great invention. I mean, my surgery, fortunately, I just need a knife and a scissors and some stitches. We're not that digitalized in theaters. In our medical theaters, when I chop or cut out organs and stitch them back, I do not need that much digitalization. But I need emotion, I need heart. I mean, surgeons, they are called, you need a lion's heart and you need a lady's finger. Right? So we need only those 2 skills, and we need courage, we need patience, we need, when the patient is bleeding, you need to really
think like a fighter jet pilot, you need to really have those sort of skills. And that none of them are actually digital skills. So, coming back to your question, that whether you think that COVID has made us better digitally and all that stuff, I think that, I was a frontline worker. I never took any advantage of any digitalization. I was on the ground wearing that N95 for 22 hours a day, 24 hours a day, sometimes doing on-calls and all. So for me, it was a time for interacting with human beings, with emotion. Digitalization, of course, was important, but I wouldn't say that we did not need to lose so many lives to really understand that COVID has been a beneficial thing for our age. I would never say that. Nothing can replace a human being. So I think, as I say, I've been hearing all these things about digitalization, technology, these are some things we don't need to think. It all happens. It happens in your periphery. Human brain, we are using less than 5% of our capacity. It has got so much plasticity that, whichever environment you will be thrown in, you will adapt, right? That's from Charles Darwin's, saying that, basically, okay, you feel a little bit shaky when a new technology comes in. If I'm in an operating room, some new gadget comes in. I'm not a gadgety person. I find it a little bit fiddly. But then, after 1 day, 2 days, 3rd day, you adapt to it, right? So that is, you don't need to really think that what will happen if there is digitalization, if it is a phone, if it is something or the other, and all. I mean, that just becomes a part of life. But I think the most important thing is to think about who is taking control of your life. Is it you with your emotional, you being your human being, with your senses, or with your hands, your eyes, with all your senses, or are you allowing the gadget to take control of your life? I think that is the most important thing. And once you learn that, then you can handle any gadget, right? I mean, I wouldn't say that, I like walking on a nice road, but somebody gives me a lift with a Ferrari, yes, I will jump in the car as well. Or somebody will tell, okay, you go to the moon, fly on a spacecraft, why not? But then it is all about how, as a human being, you handle your gadget. And I think I will stop there.
Thank you so much, ma'am. That was, of course, very insightful. To Donna, I would like to ask that when we are talking of digital innovation, we are talking of what new this generation is using, we cannot ignore the social media platforms which are there. So at any point in your life, to the line that you belong to the profession do you belong to, do you think social media platform has helped you, is important, to communicate, to express, to help, and also you yourself, you're a young practitioner. So how do you take that with the new generation? And as a female oncologist, do you think that that is a platform where you talk about issues that are important?
Hello everyone, respected dignitaries and everybody present here. It's a really big honor to speak on this big platform. It's a really big honor to speak on this big platform. So just to give you a brief idea about me, so I belong to a very middle class family where I saw, so I belong to that generation where it was just from writing letters to just seeing a person online, no matter where you are. So I have seen that, and I think I will be the last of that generation, and I think the more the generations are coming up, they won't know the situation wherein we would have to write a letter, and we would have to wait 10, 15, or maybe 20 days, or maybe more than a month to get a reply from that person. So I belong to that generation. To give you a brief idea about me, so I belong from a middle class family, and I have done nursing, and after nursing I have pursued genetics, genomic counseling. I'm an alumni of Cardiff University, UK. I have been very grateful to have got the opportunity to be to be mentored and trained in some of the biggest hospitals in UK through the TST UKRE project. And now I'm also a genetic counselor. I am also a co-investigator of some of the trials. And now I've been almost 6+ years working in the field of cancer research. So it has been like a big jump of emotions from just a middle class family coming up and having no idea where I'm going to be to now where I am now. So again, a biggest jump was coming into IGCS as a mentorship and training program assistant, working with all the fellows and all the doctors all over the world, and also now being a member of the International Gynae Cancer Society Education Board. So it is a very huge journey, and I think social media has really helped me in some ways. With all the discussions about, yes, I obviously agree that there has been some pros and cons of having social media at a very early age, but I think some bits are some things are related to upbringing, I would say. If the family knows that the parents are having social media access at a very early age, I think it's the parents who should be looking after what things they are having access to and what things they are not having access to. I am a member of IGCS, which works directly on a platform which is completely virtual. So all the fellows all over the world, they communicate with us virtually. So we have Zoom meetings, we have Project Echo, which is like all the fellows from all over the world, they are coming together and we discuss cases. So there is some gynecologist from UK who's going to discuss a case from Rwanda. And that person from Rwanda is getting a discussion about a pathology report from a person in US. So this is a biggest opportunity which I would say social media has brought. So social media doesn't just involve Facebook, doesn't just involve WhatsApp, it involves lots of things. Social media means a media where society comes together. It cannot just be Facebook. Facebook is also a good media if you use it properly. I would say there are lots of opportunities. I think I've seen lots of people who are getting big jobs in LinkedIn. There are big people who are looking at big grants which is found in social media such as WhatsApp. We have created a WhatsApp group of all the fellows all over the world, and we are communicating, you know, there is this person that is having some issues with pathology, can you help? And the other person is saying, yeah, I'm ready, I'm able to do that. How can you do that without social media? Another thing which I would like to highlight, because there had been lots of discussions and I know I'm just running, like there has been lots of thought derailments going on. Just like Dr. Asima said, COVID was obviously a factor that enhanced the social media and the communications, but it wasn't the be-all and end-all of all. If I have seen from letters to a phone call where I can see a person virtually, it would have been possible either way, even if there wasn't COVID. Just mass death wouldn't have been the cause to show this. Elon Musk has created cars, which are supercars, and he would be creating it, be it a COVID, be it not a COVID. So social media is a platform which is a boon for everybody, and if everybody can use it properly, I think it would be a big, big opportunity for the Gen Z. Just a last remark, I didn't have the opportunity of social medias because I have been getting opportunities from TST, DBT, and these are grants which you can access if you're planning to do further studies, if you're planning to do further opportunities in jobs or research. So there are lots of opportunities out there, so you have to look out for them. So social media can actually be a boon if you properly use it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I would just add another question to this, that young female, you are, the students sitting here are absolutely looking forward to you. It's a mixed batch of students that we have. See, this is the advantage of social media. Everybody is sitting in their rooms and watching it live now. So you see the audience. The audience is half here. So at the, as ma'am also said that, at the end of the day, you see that in the theatre, operation theatre, if there are more male surgeons, then, less female surgeons. Because you expected, okay, the male are better at this art. Oh my God, why such less female, it means they are better at the. Have you had any such challenges, and do you think the times have changed?
Obviously, there will be a disparity no matter how much we try to ignore that, because there will be a situation where women, because till now we are fighting for women empowerment. Why is the women empowerment term coming up? It is because we are having this big gap between the male and the females. So what we need to do is, we cannot ask the male to help us, or we cannot ask the females to stand up. It's a union. Both the male and the female has to come up together and have to identify solutions. It starts from the common man. We have to look out for opportunities. We have to suggest solutions. We need to approach the government. We need to repeatedly ask everybody to do that. Only then we can look for a change. It's not just one-man army. It has to be everybody who has to stand up for their ground. I'm talking about myself times and again, because I have come from a place where nobody was there as my backup. My father didn't distinguish me. Oh, you're not a boy, I'm not going to help you out. He helped me, obviously, because he had this in mind that no matter it's a girl or a boy, he or she is going to stand up for himself or herself. So the same applies to everybody. I have obviously faced some situations where I faced that, okay, if I would have been a male, it would have been much better in terms of job opportunities or many other opportunities. But yes, I didn't give up. That's the main thing. I would say there would be times and again when we have to stand up for ourselves. And if there are situations which you cannot handle, you have to try harder. Even if you cannot do that, I think it's better you come out of that, and there will be opportunities, I can assure you, which will give you much more opportunities and which will give you much more respect that you deserve. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That
पर एक बात मैं आप लोगों के साथ शेयर करना चाहूँगी कि हम आज भी विमेन एम्पावरमेंट की बात क्यों करते हैं। बात 87 की है। मैं ग्रेजुएशन कर रही थी और सेंट ज़ेवियर कॉलेज में एनुअल कॉम्पिटिशन्स वगैरह जो ऑर्गेनाइज होते वो चल रहे थे। मैं अपने कॉलेज को रिप्रेजेंट कर रही थी। घर आने में मुझे उस दिन देर हो गई, मुझे रात के 9 बज गए। और लड़की के लिए रात को 9 बजे 87 की बात है कि देर से आना मतलब वो बहुत बड़ा मैटर था। मेरे फादर मुझ पे गुस्सा हुए और कहा कि तुम पार्क स्ट्रीट से आ रही हो, वो इलाका अच्छा नहीं, अगर कोई तुम्हारा हाथ पकड़ लेता तो तुम क्या करती। मैंने कहा अगर मैं आपके साथ होती और कोई उस वक्त मेरा हाथ पकड़ लेता तो आप क्या करते, आप क्या बचा पाते। वो आपका हाथ पकड़ के आपको रख लेता, आपके सामने मेरी बेइज्जती करता और आप कुछ नहीं कर पाते। तो ये नहीं मतलब होता है कि अगर लड़की अकेले है तो वो मुसीबत में है और बाप या भाई साथ में है तो वो मुसीबत में नहीं आ सकती। बल्कि मैटर ये करता है कि आप अपनी बच्चों की परवरिश कैसे करते हैं। आप लड़की को लड़की बोलकर अगर परवरिश करेंगे तो वो मेंटली वीक होगी। लड़के को लड़का बोलकर करेंगे तो लड़का मेंटली और फिजिकली दोनों ही स्ट्रांग हो रहा है, क्योंकि लड़के को ये पता है कि मैं जो चाहूँ कर सकता हूँ, मैं लड़की से स्ट्रांगर हूँ। तो ये स्ट्रांगर हूँ और मैं स्ट्रांगर नहीं हूँ, ये जो आप बचपन से ही हम अपने बच्चों में डालते चले जाते हैं, वहीं पे फ़र्क आता है और वहीं ये ख़तरा पैदा होता है कि लड़की एम्पावरमेंट में है या नहीं, लड़की मजबूत है या नहीं है। हम अगर इन चीज़ों को कंट्रोल में, हम अपने थिएटर के ज़रिए हम जब वर्कशॉप करते हैं तो हम लड़का और लड़की का भेद भूल जाते हैं। हम इस तरह के वर्कशॉप करवाते हैं कि लड़के को भी लड़की को पूरा टच करके फील करना होता है कि वो किस पोजीशन में है और उसने क्या शेप बनाया है, और लड़की को लड़के को आंख बंद करके फील करना होता है कि वो क्या, उसने क्या शेप बनाया, ताकि वो लड़का और लड़की ये दोनों एक होके स्ट्रॉन्गर फीलिंग दे सकते हैं, बजाय इसके कि आप लड़का स्ट्रॉन्गर लड़की स्ट्रॉन्गर नहीं। इस फीलिंग को ख़त्म करने के लिए हमने थिएटर के ज़रिए बहुत काम किया है। और जैसा कि मिनाल ने भी कहा, तो थिएटर, मैं चूँकि मैं थिएटर से, इसलिए मैं थिएटर को बार बार फोकस कर रही कि थिएटर ने औरतों को उसकी बहुत अच्छी जगह दी है, उनको स्ट्रॉन्गर बनाया है। मुझे स्ट्रॉन्गर बनाया मतलब कि सबको स्ट्रॉन्गर बनाया है।
If I can add something. So just a brief example. So when a child is born, we buy the clothes according to the color. So if it's blue, that means it's a boy's shirt. And if it's pink, that means it's a girl's shirt. Why is that? It starts from the parents. If the parents do not change the mindset, nothing is going to happen. So again, I would say, like the previous conversations with the teachers, what they said, that there has been undue pressure given by the parents that has led to such changes, that has been such a big cause of change for the mindset of the Gen Z. These are all the more reasons. I think it's the parents who has to address all these issues, and only then I think we will be able to find out an alternative to the solution.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. Also, we talk of women education. We don't talk of men education. So we start. We are all mothers over here, and I have a son. I don't know. Ma'am also has a son. So rather than that, I would educate my son more than my daughter. Educate in the sense, telling what women right and women education. Thank you so much to all three of you here. It's a privilege actually, though medicine and yes, theatre is common because all three of you spend most of the time in theatre. But as ma'am said that I don't know why I'm here, but we know why you're here. You deserve to be here, ma'am. And all three of you deserve to be here because at the end of the day, it's important that Ina ma'am has been doing this every year. So we couldn't do it on 8th because it was holy. So we thought of doing it today. Though we need to celebrate this every day. And the students who are listening to us offline, online, let me tell you, the people who are sitting here and giving you life experience, please take these tablets and learn. And of course, the lesson that please use digital media effectively and properly. Do not misuse it. Thank you so much for everyone present here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Professor Parikh. Of course, that was a wonderful panel, wonderfully moderated by Professor Parikh, and we couldn't be more grateful for it. Thank you so much. And yes, as all of you said, there will come a time when we will, when we talk about workshops for women, let's have workshops for men on how to be secure around independent, strong women, right? We'll exclude our Vice Chancellor from that because he's the feminist man. Well, thank you so much. A big round of applause for all our panelists and of course people watching us behind the screen. A big thank you to all of you for joining us and a big thank you to the panelists as well. I would request our HR Director, Ina Bose, to formally close this session with a vote of thanks.
Whom would I address to? Hardly anyone here because they are all behind the screen. They are watching live. A vast number of viewers I can see who are watching the program live because students have their classes, faculties have their also their classes, but they are watching live and this will be there on YouTube also. The most exciting thing was that after 3 years we have been successful in celebrating International Women's Day. Last few years we had done it virtually. And that was also great, a new experience we had. But this year, yes, and the 2 hours or 2.5 hours that we spent listening to speakers, experts from diverse fields, healthcare, theatre, psychology, academics. It was really a day of so much to learn, so much to eye-opening speeches that we heard throughout the day. Thank you so much, Dr. Ashima. Thank you for coming down at a very short notice. I called you. And of course, Uma ma'am, nice knowing you, nice listening to you. Thank you so much. Yes, Donna, we'll be interacting more often, I suppose. Thank you. Thank you, sir, for allowing us to go berserk. Thank you. Yeah. All of us, all of you, whoever is here, please come up.
চলে এসো, এদিকে চলে এসো, সুদেশা তোমরা।